Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the One Hub Racing Talk Show. We are here for another Sunday evening course. Alongside me in the show tonight is Jono, and we're going to be analysing, as always, the three races that happened on Friday. We went to Hungary, Budapest, tight and twisty track. Jono, memories of Hungary, I imagine one stands out in particular for you.
Yeah, it does indeed. I actually enjoy the track, but don't have the best of memories because, yeah, the main one that stands out to me is running into the back of the gearbox of your car and getting wing damage, which cost me a chance of the win, I think. So that, yeah, it stands in my mind. But overall, I do like the circuit. It polarizes the drivers a bit because it is, a lot like a street circuit. So not everyone gets on with it, but I always enjoyed it, and it usually delivers us some pretty exciting racing.
And just to clarify, we were quicker, and we should have both finished 1-2 that race. Not the Williams of Chris and
Definitely.
Temp,
Yeah,
if they're
definitely. And
watching.
there was a bit of heated debate, wasn't there, after the race, as we thought we definitely had the pace to win if the lag hadn't have kicked in and ruined it for us. But yeah, they thought otherwise. But then that's what happens in racing, I guess.
Last time we went to Hungary was on this game for qualifying night, Jono, and obviously it's a really technical track, twisty, tight middle sector, not much room for overtaking as we saw. Drivers struggled a little bit to get past. It was almost just one of those tracks where it's definitely easier to defend than it is to overtake here.
Yeah, it is. I mean, turn one is the number one spot, isn't it? But if you find you've got too much downforce on the car or the car ahead of you's getting a good exit and you can't get it done into turn one, well, you're in trouble, really, aren't you? Otherwise, you've got to try and force your way through somewhere else, but not easy at all. So that turn one is the key place. But of course, if you want a decent race car, you feel like you want to pile downforce on the car, but then that doesn't always pay dividends in the race if you're stuck behind other cars.
Yeah, definitely. Alrighty, so our podium tier at 7 p.m., Pinnacle tier at 8 p.m., and Prestige tier at 9 p.m. all took place on Friday. And we're going to start with the podium tier this week, back to normal. And Jorit, pole position, pumped in all the drivers, obviously choosing that ultra soft tyre, Jono, because of the wet weather in the race. It kind of ruined all that strategy work that some of them probably put in before the race.
Yeah, it did, didn't it? But at least it did get, not very often actually, but with the way the tyres work this season, that we see most of the drivers actually on the quickest tyre in qualifying, so we never quite know what they could have done. But obviously on this occasion, due to the wet start, they all went for the ultra soft. So they all got to go out there on the softest tyre available and really, get in the best lap times they could possibly deliver.
Alrighty, and speaking of delivering, CXY wasn't able to get pole position a tenth off, so that's the first time he's raced a one-hub racing and not finished facing the turn one first, but nevertheless a good qualifying result for him. Adrodok finishing in third in qualifying, and the top 7 or 8 were separated by a second, so that's good to see in the podium tier that the gaps are there, but noticeably Gaza, he seems to have dropped off form since he had the couple weeks off where he wasn't able to race.
Yeah, he seems to be struggling a little bit and, yeah, perhaps just not quite back in the groove yet, as you say, after his few weeks away. So yeah, he'd be a little bit disappointed, I guess, to start there in P11. Obviously, in a dry race, you'd be not too disappointed because you'd get tyre choice, but because of the inters, obviously at the start, even that didn't play in his favour.
Yeah, definitely. And then as the race went, obviously starting in intermediate conditions, Jonah, how nervous is it when you haven't done any, or presumably a lot of these drivers, they don't practice in the wet weather. You're heading down to turn one. You've got a full tank of fuel, a new set of inters that you're not used to the grip on. How nervous is it for him heading down to that heavy braking zone?
Yeah, it's not nice at all. I know, we always used to put in at least a couple of laps of wet practice, didn't we, beforehand? So you've at least got some idea of where the grip is, but that still doesn't really help you down into turn one at the start of the race when you've got a field of 17, 18 drivers, and as well as looking after yourself and your own braking point, you've got to hope that everyone around you gets it somewhere near right as well, so you don't get hit from behind. You can't be too cautious and brake early because you'll get rammed into. So it's always nerve-wracking, and just yeah, I always sat on the grid with butterflies if I knew the rain was falling.
Let's talk about Dainstar. Got disqualified from qualifying, had to start 17th because his wheel disconnected as he left the pit lane and his car actually stopped. and therefore the game disqualified him. Very harsh luck there. But off the start, before the end of the first lap, he's already up to 9th position. So absolute storming start. He won in Germany in these conditions as well. So he's becoming known for, being able to feel his grip in these conditions.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal start. He made his way up half the grid basically in the first half a lap of the race or whatever it was. So really, really impressive getaway, and managed to keep it neat and tidy, obviously, and just exploit the fact that everyone's very close together early on and make the moves stick.
And obviously, as the first few laps came underway, it's just so tight up and down the field. There were battles, but no one could really. It felt like everyone was really struggling to pass. And I'm sure these conditions didn't help. But Danestar decides to come into the pits and go onto those medium tires, which inevitably kind of cost him a chance of a good result. So he came in on lap 12. It really wasn't ready. And he was struggling on this tyre wear, but nevertheless, he ended up retiring from the session. And then Jurek got wing damage, and it was his turn to come into the pits. So he, and I think perhaps he was one lap early, but at the end of the day, he didn't lose out too much. And as it dried up, most drivers choosing to go on to the, one stop, run the mediums to the end. And Adrilla Doc, his second race at One Hub Racing, he went flying last time out in Germany, but he kept it on the track today, and he took a win, well deserved in my opinion.
Yeah, it was well deserved, wasn't it? Because he had so much pressure for a long time from CXY behind in the Ferrari, who looked like he was probably quicker, but yeah, he just couldn't get the move done into turn one, could he? And he was able to hold him back for long enough so that in the end, even though he did get through eventually, he had the time penalty, and so he was still able to win the race. So those crucial laps where he held him back and defended really well were absolutely crucial, and it made all the difference in the end.
These this championship, drivers' championship in particular, constructors as well. Red Bull really took a hit with both drivers not finishing, Gaza not finishing the race, and Jor on the podium again. So himself, CXY, Jonas finishing fourth. They all gained on Danestar, and the gap's gotten considerably smaller in the constructors as well. Do you think we could really have a battle on our hands at the end of the season here?
Yeah, it does look like it's going to work out that way, doesn't it? I mean, I did, I watched the race earlier. I did feel for Dainster when he came out of the pits on the medium, and instantly you could see it was the wrong tyre. And I think we've all done that at some point, come out and just thought, oh no, you've made the wrong decision, and it's difficult to get anything out of it from there. So it was a big points loss for them, for him in drivers and constructors as well. But they're still quick, aren't they? And I still think that Dainster's got enough to win the championship. Obviously, this race was a bit of we saw how quick he was until he pitted. So we know he's still got the pace there. And I expect him to come back next week and be right there at the front.
Definitely, Jamie having a good race in the rain. He always struggles in those conditions, but bit of a boring race on his way to sixth. Boffy Dweller as well, back in the top five for him. Only one disconnection, and then Bougie, who we're going to speak to later on in the show, in his first race, finishing in eighth. He was chatting to Liam afterwards. They had a brilliant battle towards the end, but just wasn't able to get that job done. And you have to say that this track in particularly, as you mentioned, it is very difficult to not just get past, but make the move stick. As we see that, in all three tiers, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, sometimes even into turn 4, it continues all the way. And it's all about that inside-outside line, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Yeah, that's what it's all about, and trying to use your fuel and your ERS to their maximum as well. But I think everyone was just, using it all in that first sector, and then you can basically run what you want in the middle. Nobody's going to get past you. So, strategy came to play a little bit, I guess. But I think, most guys were just saving all their energy and using it in that first sector to try and either attack or defend.
Alrighty, let's move on to the Pinnacle tier. Jono, you had the pleasure commentating on this one, and we saw more of a normal qualifying in terms of what we expected strategy-wise. Everyone in the top 13, except for Donkall, starting on that soft tyre compound. But the two Ferraris locking out that front row just ahead of Reflo on his return. And, it's Sam just doing what he needs to do at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah, he is exactly doing that, and yeah, front row lockout for Ferrari. I'm sure they were delighted about that. And Don Cool is usually the man in qualifying. He's down there in fifth, but on the medium tyre. But I think that was because he made a mistake on his soft run at the end, so he had to settle with that medium lap. He's still putting P5, so there or thereabouts. But yeah, you always know that Sam's going to be there or thereabouts, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. Pepsi Gamer having a good qualifying as well. Don Cole, just behind us, the two McLarens up in the top five, and then it's the two Haas teams as well, and then the two Sauber teams. So other than the Mercedes, we went manufacturer by manufacturer all the way down. But as the race went on, Don Cole was able to hang on to those top four. But let's talk about the Ferraris because it was clear when I rewatched it that Matt was holding up Reflow.
Yeah, he was holding that Ruffalo. There was a big gap, wasn't there? Even by the end of lap one, Sam was way clear of the rest of the pack. So yeah, Matt, I think doing his job for the team there in the opening part of the race.
And what, as a spectator, Jonah, what do you make about that? Well, whether you agree with it or not, it doesn't really matter. It's completely legal. But how frustrating! Reflo must have known what was happening, and it's one of the probably the worst tracks for it to happen on. And there was just nothing he could do, and seemingly he got wing damage. I felt really sorry for him, because he's only trying to pass. Ring damage around here is just one of the worst tracks to have it through that middle sector. You're just corner after corner, losing so much time. But even though Sam got a lead from it, and Reflo got damaged and had to pit early onto mediums, he just bottled it in the just after the first sector, turn 4, turn 5, and lost that what was about 5 second lead.
Yeah, he did, and the same with Matt. Really, we've seen a few times this season that the tyres just seem to fall off, and the Ferraris go from pretty much cruising out front. Not that Matt was cruising particularly, but Sam as well, to suddenly falling into the clutches of the pack, and that happened, didn't it, with both of them? So yeah, Sam went from looking really, really strong in the opening laps to, it wasn't much later that Don Cool was suddenly storming up behind and on the medium tyre.
Alrighty, and medium tire flow went a long way on those mediums. I didn't think when I was watching the race, that he'd be able to get that far. But one thing I'd like to point out in this race, Jono, the overtaking and defending was everyone seemed to be doing it on such a limit as though it was the last lap and they're fighting for the race win, which is good to see in one way, but it's only a matter of time before if you're pushing cars wide, not giving them room on exit and things like that, the driver that's trying to overtake or loses out, the frustration is going to boil over at some point.
Yeah, we want to see commitment, but yeah, at times it is right on the edge, isn't it? And we've seen it before, especially in this tier, I guess. And yeah, on a circuit like this as well, there's no runoff on a lot of it. So if you're pushing the limits, there's very, very little margin for error, and you cannot go for those all-out, fully committed moves all the time and expect them to come off.
Cloudy Balloons had a good start in the just on lap 8 here on the stream as I'm watching back. Don calls past the two Ferraris on the mediums, and from that point it was almost like you just knew he was going to win the race. But Cloudy Balloons was having a good start, up eight positions, but then it just kind of went downhill from there. And he's just not driving particularly well. It seems like the results have got in his head a little bit, and he's struggling to get out of that mindset where it doesn't matter. So I'm going to go for moves and things and make mistakes that you wouldn't normally do if you were on the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. He's coming off the back of two quali bans. It obviously just impacts your next race every time because you're coming from the back. You've got to try and make something out of it. And unfortunately, the contact he made with TK, it was just an innocent sort of mistake. He just got caught out, ran into the back of TK slightly, and did the wing damage to the car. But on another day, he'd have just sort of sucked that up, returned to the pits, and gone again. But unfortunately, frustration got the better of him, and he just drove straight on into the wall and DNF'd. So obviously, getting pretty frustrated with things at the moment, and yeah, it led to him not finishing yet another race.
All right, and if we flick forward to the results, we know that there's a few stewards incidents between TK and Mage Soman, but both Haskars and Mage Soman, they were in DRS pretty much the entire race, weren't they? Those cars, and some of it, as we just mentioned, it was very on the limit of right and wrong. We won't talk about the incidents in particular too much because they're in the steward's office. But just quickly on that, they were really pushing each other's cars and things to the absolute. I mean, to the absolute limit. And like I said, Jono, the guy that's losing out, frustration does start to build up.
Yeah, I mean, race long between sort of TK there, who ended up sixth, down to Lukey really in 10th, who was just about on the back of that pack as well. They were just battling almost all race long. And if that's happening lap after lap, there's bound to be a few, little bits of coming together or near misses here and there. For the most part of the stream, I thought it looked pretty clean, and it was pretty good. It was good to watch, to be honest. But there's a few incidents in the stewards from that, but just as always, this tier in particular, I guess, the midfield is just ridiculously competitive every single week.
Don Cole taking the win to cut Sam's championship point lead down. Then he finished in second. Flo back on the podium, a long way on those medium tyres, as I mentioned. Matt coming home in fourth position. White Fountain, who we're going to speak to in the talk show very shortly, coming home in fifth. And the two Haas drivers made showmen in the points, Farth and Lukey. You can head over to Twitter on all three of the tiers. You can vote for the driver of the day. So two drivers from each tier up against each other. Go over and cast your vote before the voting ends. Prestige tier. Jono, we've spoken about this before, but what are these boys doing in qualifying? They're so close. I mean, all the way down from first to 15th place. 7.5 tenths.
Yeah, it's absolutely scary, isn't it? I mean, I remember back when I used to race, I'd be half a second off, and I'd probably be on the second row or something. And if I was half a second off here, I'd be outside the top 10. It's just crazy how competitive it is. The margins are absolutely tiny, and the pressure, it must just be absolutely crazy for these guys every time they go out.
It's almost like they thrive on that pressure, isn't it? Just so close at the top there, and it's just amazing to see, so many cars lap a circuit, so close together, and it just shows you that, this tier is so competitive.
Yeah, it just shows that they're all, they're on the limit of what the car can do on this game, aren't they? They've all sort of got, ideal setups on the car, and they all just know exactly how to exploit it all to its limits. Hence why they're all within sort of, the 7 or 8 tenths. They're all absolutely at the maximum. So literally one mistake and the lap's gone.
Alrighty, as they head down to turn one, cars weaving all over the place, inside to outside, trying to pick their lines, pick their braking points, and then it's hard to tell exactly what happens on the stream. But further down the order, as they exit turn one, there seems to be an incident. Noak's out the race. Extended's involved. Jesse's involved. We think maybe Josh might be involved, but it's just one of those incidents where Jesse retires. We didn't catch what happened exactly. I believe it's in the steward's office. But it's one of those incidents, isn't it, where at the start of the race, sometimes it's really hard. A chain of events lead to incidents where multiple cars are involved usually.
Yeah, exactly that. I think the initial incident probably involved Jesse and McSendit going into turn one. Either way, McSendit ended up sideways across the track, and then of course everybody behind him has just got nowhere to go, and everyone else ended up, or other drivers ended up trying to avoid him, crashing into each other as well, getting wing damage. So yeah, it was a really messy start for those behind him. But ahead of that, obviously everyone else got away okay. But yeah, one small thing like that in turn one, and you have chaos.
As the race went on, we saw the same old with Blizzard, where his tyres, went off towards the second half of the stint. And Odem's, credit to him, was really hooked up around this track, and he's up for the drive of the day vote. And he got through on lap 5 pretty easily, to say the least. Then Blizzard was overtaken by Francis after that. And then he seemed to put up a bit more of a fight to Julian. Could it be something to do with his name didn't begin with VSR?
Yeah, you never know, do you? Never know. He did seem to put up a bit more of a fight with Julian. As you say, Odems as well looked absolutely rock solid in this race, didn't he? And
he's won here before, hasn't he?
To everyone else.
Around this track,
he just
he's
seems
dominated.
to have the lines here, doesn't he? It's a really technical circuit as well. but it always seems to go well. And yeah, well, he was robbed at the end, wasn't he, just by penalties.
Yes, definitely. So as the race went on, there was that we've seen it in races where the medium starters end up leading the race, but 17, 18 laps on from the start, they're still all within DRS range. Ollie again having amazing starts, and he started in 19th place and ended up finishing in fifth, and he's just got the knack of somehow getting through all these prestige tier drivers and keeping his Red Bull in one piece. They should watch his race highlights, some of them, and maybe pick up a few tips.
Yeah, he just, like you say, he just seems to be able to work his way forward, doesn't he? A bit like White Fountain as well in the pinnacle tier. They just seem to make their way forward every race somehow. You don't always even see much of them, but they just keep out of trouble, make the right strategy calls, don't make mistakes. And if you do that, you'll make your way up the grid pretty much every time.
Alrighty, yeah, Malloy was having a decent race. He had a bit of an incident later on, but still, it's good to see him back in the points. This is one of those drivers who did the alternate strategy, finished in the points as well. Rafa and MLA, they had a brilliant scrap. Rafa did finish ahead, but the penalty knocked him
Mm.
down. Same with the Odems, who I felt I was I really liked Julian, but I wanted Odems to win that race just because I felt he really deserved it. And just that one penalty, just a second, 9 tenths or whatever it was, it just cost him the win, and so frustrating, I imagine, for him.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be so frustrated, and especially because he was comfortably leading when he got that third penalty, wasn't he? So it's not even although he had to push the limits at that point to win the race. It was in his hands, and obviously just made that one error too many, didn't he? Which got him the penalty. And as usual, Julian didn't get any penalties, and it made the difference.
Speaking of difference, James Slater and Scott Fielder getting into the points again this week. So just showing, they always seem to be pretty close on track. I keep an eye on their gaps as the race is unfolding, and they're usually within DRS range of each other. But VSR Josh, Jesse, and Noik failing to finish the race, as did Blizzard, Plexit, and Francis. So yeah, a few guys who started near the top weren't able to keep it together. But Julian, you have to say, a commanding lead now in the Drivers' Championship, and it seems to be pretty much over for the rest of the boys.
Mm. Yeah, it's unassailable, I think, from Julian because he's got the pace and the consistency, hasn't he? He hasn't really got any weaknesses at all. And other guys like Blizzard, who can say, well, they can match Julian for pace, but with tire wear issues and maybe lack of consistency compared with Julian means they've just fallen away, and they've left him there, yeah, with an over 100-point lead now. So I think it's too far back for anyone else.
Good attendance though from the top to the prestige here last couple of weeks,
Definitely.
19 both races, so well done to them. All right, we're going to get some drivers in, so we're going to speak to MLA, who's recently announced his retirement at the end of the season. We're going to speak to White Fountain from the Pinnacle tier. Of course, he won Baku earlier in the season, and then we'll speak to Boji, who is new to the league. He had his first race on Friday in Hungary. If you are listening, guys, make sure you have your voice allowed to be shared, and I'll invite you in now. Alrighty, so we will wait for them to join the lobby. You would have seen some announcements this week that Don Cool, Sam, and Danestar have all joined our One Hub Racing esports team. So well done to them, and best of luck for any events that they'll be taking part in 2019. Welcome to the party, Mark and White Fountain and Bougie. Just to remind you, we are live, so no swearing. And if you could make sure your voice is set to share in this party, that would be fantastic. Bougie, we'll start with you. Welcome to One Hub Racing. You had your first race on Friday around a difficult track, technical track, and you enjoyed your battle with Liam.
I did. Yeah, it was tough. I knew I was catching him towards the end. I had a bit of kind of a tough race. There was a few things that went wrong for me. Broke my wing in my first entire inter stint, so that didn't help. I lost quite a few places just through that, and then again a few more in the pits when I was getting my wing changed. I knew I was going to catch Liam towards the end of the race, but he defended super aggressive, but really well. Yeah, it was good fun towards the end. Yeah, I did enjoy my experience on the whole. Yeah, it was nice.
Obviously, Hungary being one of those tracks where you start usually on the middle tire and then switch to the hardest tire at some point, or vice versa. Is that a track that after Friday you were able to kind of work out the pecking order where you'll stack up for the rest of the season?
Maybe. I mean, the beauty of the game is that you can. So many people are good at different tracks. There's some tracks I'm not very good at. I'm not overly experienced in online racing. I only started, in November or something like that. So there's different people have different levels of ability on different tracks. So I don't really know. I feel like if it was a perfect session in qualifying. My DRS went on my final lap and it was a little bit sloppy, so that could have bumped me up. I qualified in 7th, maybe could have been around 5th. But yeah, I don't really know at this point. But I'm happy to get points. I just tried to take it easy. It's in the first race. We'll see how it goes.
Awesome. All right, White Fountain. We'll come to you. John was saying earlier, you always seem to find yourself in, that top 5 or 6. Just ahead of the midfield pack, and you finished 5th again on Friday to add some more points to your haul. But do you think we'll be able to see you back on that podium before the end of the season?
I don't think podium will be achievable because Reflow, Sam, Don Cool, and Matt in most races are too quick. So I'm aiming like 5th, 6th position is where I belong on most tracks, I guess.
Awesome stuff. And talk to us about Hungary. Obviously, I mentioned it's one of those tracks, you have to start on the middle compound and switch to the hardest. Do you like it when it's like that, or do you prefer it when qualifying, you can strap on the quickest tire and absolute push the car to its absolute limit?
My qualifying pace isn't that wonderful, so I don't mind getting the middle tire and going to the hard one. I don't expect anything from qualifying. I just focus on the race and try to gain as many positions as possible.
Awesome stuff. All right, Mark, welcome to the talk show. Good to have you here. You've announced your retirement at the end of the season from league racing. Do you just want to give us a brief intro into what led you to make that decision? Of course, anyone who wants to find out the full report can go on the website www.onehubracing.com and you can read Mark's full statement. And he talks about what he's enjoyed and the rest of the season and the future. But Mark, do you just want to sum it up and talk to us about why you came to that decision?
Yeah, it was very very tough initially, but it was actually coming for quite a while now. I think around the summer. So I thought I would do this season and then try to make a final choice around halfway through. It's not necessarily to do with the results of this season, but I just think having been in the league for quite a few seasons and doing it week in, week out for how many races within a year period, it's quite draining, and I think it's time for me to get out of it for a little while and just enjoy myself away from it.
Talk to us. You made the transition last season, I believe, from the pad to the wheel, and since then you've been racing on the wheel, I presume.
Yeah.
You used to be battling with Beastas for wins and podiums, whereas now you seem to qualify outside the top 10 and battle your way into the points. You won in Monaco, a podium again on Friday. What do you make of this season in the prestige tier? And do you think it's more difficult than ever?
Absolutely, it's unpredictable in prestige. We've seen people start at the very back and actually claw their way to the front. We've seen there's been quite a few incidents that I've unfortunately been involved in, but that's the beauty of league racing. Sometimes you have luck and sometimes you don't have luck, and it's pretty fun.
Awesome, Jono. Starting with Buji, do you have a question for these guys?
Yeah, Bougie obviously new to the league and obviously looked pretty good at Hungary. And as you said, he's probably had more potential to come as well if you'd have hooked everything up. what sort of style of track and driver would you say you are to us who haven't seen you obviously race much before? Does the tight and twisty track, is that your sort of thing, or are you more into the sort of Silverstone style proper race open race circuits?
Um, oh, it's a really tough question for me because, like I said, I've only started doing. I've always played F1 games, so always like career mode. I haven't really done much online stuff. I'd say, I mean, I think most people agree with me. Like, I hate Monaco just because it's ridiculous, and I get hit by someone at some point. I've just never had luck there. But I do like, I really like France because it's quite kind of flowy. It's got like a flow to it. So just sort of Silverstone to a sense as well. Yeah, I guess the kind of flowy tracks, the ones where you're not full, foot down on the brake, you're kind of doing a lot of trail braking and stuff like that. So yeah, the flowy tracks I enjoy quite a lot.
Okay, cool. And White Fountain, obviously, commentate on you every week pretty much, and often mention the fact that you always seem to make your way forward in the races and keep out of trouble more often than not. But the fact that I'm always saying that means you're probably qualifying lower down the grid than you perhaps want to be. Do you see that as a weakness, and is it something you want to improve on, trying to start higher up the grid?
Yeah, qualifying is definitely my weakness, but I don't think I need to improve it, but I don't know how. I just try to go as fast as possible, but the other guys are always faster. But as it goes now, I have boring races. Hungary was just boring race from lap 1 to lap 36, and something happens in front of me or behind me, and I end up so high, and I don't even know how I did it.
Just keep to yourself and let everyone else crash out around you and make your way forward. Yeah, and
Yeah, that's my
so
tactic.
yeah, that's a good one. Good one. MLA then, Mark. I've watched you obviously for quite a few seasons now, and I'd always say that consistency and racecraft and keeping out of trouble are probably your strong points as well. But obviously, as you mentioned, this season been perhaps not quite as competitive as you'd hope to be. What do you think you're perhaps lacking, or what are the others doing so well that makes things so difficult this season in the prestige tier?
Qualifying, to cut the long story short. But yeah, it's just it's mostly on this game. It compared to 2017, I don't really it doesn't give me that slow speed rotation feel that I kind of like. And then it becomes more difficult when I'm qualifying behind and I'm stuck in traffic because it's hard to progress in such a stacked prestige field. So yeah.
So they just got incredible one lap pace. You think basically the Blizzards and Julians of this world.
To be honest, I think Blizzard is more better on one lap than Julian, but I think Julian is more of a complete package.
Alrighty. Buji, obviously, you said you haven't done much league racing. Not sure if you raced any other leagues, but what did you make of your first week in One Hub Racing, with the media day and things like that? Was it something that you enjoyed?
Definitely, yeah. I'm in a couple of leagues. Is this definitely one of the better experiences? You jump in some leagues and there can be a lot of dramas and stuff like that. But for me, the turn one is the point of a good league. I mean, there wasn't much drama in front of me in Hungary for turn one, and that was nice to see. Everyone gave a lot of space, and yeah, it was really nice. It was a good experience. Yeah.
Yeah, the tier you're in is probably, I'd say, has the least incidents, or even if there are incidents, they tend to sort it out more between themselves than, start arguing in the chat and
Yeah,
things like
again,
that.
incidents happen. It happens. You've got to accept that and kind of move on. If you mess up, you mess up. You just got to kind of own up and move on. But yeah, it was good fun. I enjoyed it.
So of the tracks remaining, what do you see being a track that obviously we're up to Belgium next, so we've done 12 of the season, not too many more to go, but is there a track that you've looked at the calendar and thought, yes, I can't wait for that one?
First of all, Belgium's tricky for me. I'm all right in Belgium. I quite enjoy Mexico. I'm excited for Mexico. Again, I've never raced Mexico online yet because obviously all the other leagues I'm in, they've not reached that either. So, but I do enjoy Mexico from what I have experienced.
When you do Mexico, turn one is a long way away. So if you if you were to end up on the front row, I imagine you wouldn't be there towards when it comes to the breaking point. But it's definitely a good track for overtaking, which at the end of the day is what us as viewers and commentators and drivers is what we all enjoy.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, Mexico. I don't know what it is about it. It's not actually that kind of flowy. It's not the track that I would normally pick, but I've just always enjoyed racing in Mexico. It's just a great track. I do enjoy a lot of battles to be had in Mexico.
Awesome stuff. White Fountain, on to you. Last question. You're on 109 points now in fourth position. So although you say that the guys in front of you are a lot quicker, you really are you're over the 100-point mark. And who do you see as your main rivals then? Because you say you've got that gap. You've had a few new drivers join the league. Who would you say for the rest of the season that you want to aim to beat week in, week out?
I don't think there is really one person who I want to beat because every week somebody else is really fast, and every other week someone bottles it. So I know there are a few guys who are really fast sometimes. Chopper is very fast, but bottles it all the time, so that's a shame. The new guys, I think they're probably also faster, and the guys I've been around like T-Cray, CSS is like really fast, but he's just unlucky. Those are the guys I'm aiming to be around.
So CSS obviously scoring his first points of the season. Just quickly on the pinnacle tier, obviously it's the tier that's probably renowned for the most incidents on track. And you seem to keep out of it all the time. Have you ever considered selling your expertise to some of your fellow drivers?
I think I'm just lucky. I had my incidents before in Spain. I went to the steward's office twice and I got double penalty. But I try to keep it as safe as possible on lap one. And if you're past lap one, most of the danger is gone. And you just need to be a bit patient and a bit cautious while overtaking.
You definitely do. Alrighty, Mark. We'll come to you next. My final couple of questions are: you first of all, who's been your favorite driver to race against at your time here at One Hub Racing?
There's quite a lot. I don't really have a favorite, so yeah, there's been a lot of fast guys that I've raced, but it's really difficult to say right now.
In qualifying, me and Jono just spoke about it earlier in your tier around Hungary. 7.5 temps covered the top 15 drivers. Do you find that something that, you look at it afterwards and find it a bit frustrating that, a temp for 2 temps could have gained you 5 or 6 positions? Or do you look at that and think, wow, that's amazing?
Sometimes I'm actually not that bothered because I'm normally not really that great on one lap, but other times I am kind of like upset with myself because I know like sometimes my race pace can be not too far from the so-called aliens. So yeah, it just depends on the race really.
All right, and final question from myself to you, Mark. If Mercedes were to win the championship this season, the Constructors' Championship, what would be your greatest achievement at One Hub Racing?
Good question. I would actually say this season in a way because I've had the polar opposite of luck compared to season 10 when I was battling for the driver's title as well. But this season has tested me mentally to just come pick myself back up and keep going. And I think I've moved in recent races, although some races haven't worked out. I've slowly but surely been clawing my way up the driver's table as well, and I'm actually glad to be partnered with the best driver on the grid right now. So yeah, because the chemistry between us is very interesting, and we just tend to get the best out of each other, even though one has a bad race or the other didn't nail it. We just go through everything and then try to be as strong as a team. So I'm really happy, especially with the double podium on Sunday as well.
Other than Baku qualifying, yeah?
Oh, let's not talk about it. Let's not talk about it. We banned ourselves from talking about it on WhatsApp as well.
It's all right. Myself and Jono, we had a few we've had a few incidents over the years as well that shall not be spoken about. All right, guys, thank you very much for joining us in the chat show tonight. I hope everyone watching enjoyed it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Next week we head to Belgium, and last question for all of you. Buji, we'll start with you. Upper Rouge in the rain on this game. It's terrifying, isn't it?
Oh God, it's scary enough in the dry, never mind the rain. It's shocking. It'll be interesting if it does rain for sure. There's definitely going to be some wipeouts there, definitely.
White Fountain, how many guys in front of you do you plan to be giving a little wave to if it was to rain in Belgium as you pass them Upper Rouge?
I hope I don't bullet it up on a Rouge, and well, I tried to get my 5th place back. Finishing 5th, I would be happy.
Awesome. Mark, same question for you. Stranger, it's so difficult in this game, as Buji mentioned, in the dry, but in the wet, it really is difficult. And obviously corner cutting as well at the top of the hill can often catch you out. What do you make of that corner on this game, particularly in the wet?
I've not done too much around Spa, so I'll have to find out when I practice this week.
Awesome. All right, guys. Best of luck next week in Belgium. Hope you all have a good race, and look forward to watching the races. I'll be commentating on the podium tier with Sean again at 7 p.m. next week on Friday. You've got Jono and Kieran back in the commentary box for the 8 p.m. Pinnacle tier, and then you've got Jack and Alex with a new mic for the Prestige tier at 9 p.m. next week. So Spa hopefully puts on another good show for us. Again, guys, thank you for joining us tonight in the chat show. Hope everyone enjoyed, and hope you have a good week. And we'll be back for Media Day on Thursday and the race on Friday. Thank you very much.
Cheers.